He's the country's longest-serving mayor and now officially our most trusted as well. Invercargill Mayor Tim Shadbolt is a regular on the Reader's Digest Most Trusted list, and this year he topped the local body politicians and came in at 53 on the list of most trusted New Zealanders as well. He started out as a student politician in Auckland, and after university he became a political protester and a concrete contractor as well. In 1983, he became mayor of Waitemata, which he won and lost twice, as well as losing the old mayoral chains a couple of times as well. And then he moved to Invercargill to lead the country's southernmost city, and he's been there ever since, serving 6 terms in all. He joins me now live from Invercargill. Good morning, Mr. Shadbolt. We've just showed some magnificent photos of you as a young man with long hair. Congratulations on becoming our most trusted mayor. You know, and you've been a public figure now for half a century. How have you stuck it out?
I know, it sort of surprises me. It's like some continuing soap opera that seems to go on and on, but I guess it's popping up in movies and on television shows like Dancing with the Stars, and I've written a couple of books now, so I think that's kept us in the limelight and kept us relevant. How do you
keep the energy levels up?
Well, I think a lot of it's to do with humour. I always try and look at the funny side of life, you know. I think I first won this poll 9 years ago and I was the most trusted politician in New Zealand, and I said, well, if I'm the most trusted politician in New Zealand, I shudder to think what the rest of them must be like. And so I always try and infuse, and I think towing the concrete mixer behind the mayoral Daimler and just injecting a bit of humour into life is greatly appreciated by people.
Does it also help, Mr. Shadbolt, that you live in Invercargill? Because we don't really know what you get up to down there, to be honest, do we?
Yes, it's hard to know how people sort of judge you. I mean, the most trusted politicians were Maggie Barry and Sam Johnson, and I didn't even know he'd been a board member. He was mostly known for being organising the student army. So it's hard to know how people are swayed, really, by what you do in life.
OK, well, how do you keep the trust, then, of your electorate?
Well, I think it's just being honest. When you make a balls up, when you do something wrong, you make a mistake, you've got to front up. And I thought the problem with Invercargill is we're at the end of a no-exit road and we needed an international airport, and I spent $7 million extending the runway and no planes landed on it. So you've just got to front up to people at times and say, look, I did my best, but I made a mistake. And in the short term, you get a few whacks, but in the long term, I think people do trust you.
You've got an election too coming up in October. What are you going to campaign on this time, do you think?
Well, there's a lot of issues. Of course, population decline is one of them, so we're always desperate for jobs and looking at new ideas and looking at events and looking at tourism and trying to improve the economic state of the city. And that's an ongoing process that every mayor, including myself, is going to have to face, probably in provincial New Zealand.
What are your chances, do you think, of re-election?
Well, I predict. That's the poll that counts, because it's like the TAB of local government, and that is usually deadly accurate because people have to put their money on the results rather than just answering questions from a student with a clipboard. So I'm on 97% chance of getting re-elected, so it gives me a little bit of confidence.
You're feeling pretty confident, I could say, with that sort of margin. Goodness me. You mentioned, and just on a slightly more serious note, you mentioned that, you know, you're looking to try and drive the region, and population and jobs are an issue for you. Do you know what the latest is with the Rio Tinto negotiations and the situation down there?
Well, I've been in contact with Bill English and the Prime Minister, of course, John Key, and the acting manager of the smelter at the moment, and those talks are continuing on and on. They're confidential and I can't go into detail, but we're feeling reasonably confident that some solution will be worked out at present.
And if it's not, what would it mean for the region?
Well, it would be devastating. It's our biggest industry, 800 direct jobs and probably another 2,000 indirect. So that would have a devastating impact on us. We would really have to diversify and look at all sorts of other options, and we're doing that at present. We've got a few plan Bs in the pipeline.
When you look back, and we've seen some of those magnificent photos of you as a student protester, did you ever think back then that at some stage you'd be negotiating with, you know, the Prime Minister of the day about things such as aluminium smelters?
No, I did not. I thought that would be the most unlikely future for me on earth. But I think that you do, when you're fighting the system, you actually learn how it works. And a lot of people who were in those protests in the 60s and against French testing and all sorts of things, I think my first one was in support of Radio Hauraki, which was a private radio in those days. But you do learn a lot, and often the protesters of yesteryear do become the leaders of the future.
What do you think of John Key, Mr Shadbolt?
He's a very personable person, and again, he enjoys humour. I know I first heard him speak when he was addressing the local government conference, and it was a delightful speech. But of course, it often happens further down the track. You've got an overpay and things come out of left field that knock you around quite a bit, so I don't know what the future will be there. But we work in with all governments and we just try and do the best for our region.
All right, Tim Shadbolt, the country's most trusted mayor, thank you and congratulations.
Pleasure.